Hey everybody, welcome back to homerecordingmadeeasy.com and here on my YouTube channel. And this is the second video, episode 2 of part of my larger Universal Audio series, where we're going to take a look today at the LA-2A by Universal Audio. We're going to take a look at the different versions of the LA-2A, going to give you a little history lesson about the LA-2A, and then we're going to listen to it on a couple of different sound sources that I would tend to use an LA-2A on. So if you want to learn more about the Universal Audio series that I'm doing, you can check out the playlist, link in the description box below. And we're going to be going through all the different plugins over time, doing reviews on them, such as this one. And also I talk about the whole ecosystem and the hardware, whether it be the Apollo interfaces, whether it be the satellite systems to run just the plugins, and how that all kind of works. You may want to check that out. That was episode 1, kind of giving you a primer of the lay of the land on kind of how the system works. Now this is episode 2, where we're going to start stepping into some of the different plugins and kind of show you the benefits of having them, because I get lots of students that ask me this about Universal Audio and they seem kind of confused. So definitely check all the links in the description box for more information around everything to do with Universal Audio. Also along the way, I'll have some links in the description box for Sweetwater.com, where you can pick up not only Universal Audio plugins, but also Universal Audio hardware. If you're someone thinking about getting into Universal Audio, or you're thinking about expanding your system, you can do that with the links in the description box below. And full disclosure, those are my affiliate links. And so when you use that, you are helping me out here at Home Recording Made Easy, and I do appreciate it, but you don't pay anything more for the product. Okay. So now, before we get in here into Luna and look at the LA-2A and talk a little bit about it, if this is your first time here, I want you to go out to homerecordingmadeeasy.com, and I want to give you a free mixing course worth about $50. It's my gift to you just for visiting homerecordingmadeeasy.com. And if you stick around till the end of the video, I have something else I want to give you for free. So keep watching. So let's jump on in here into Universal Audio Luna, their new DAW, or as they call it, their recording system. And I'll be doing some videos on specific functions on how to use Luna in the future. But this is their new recording software, their new DAW. So let's talk a little bit about the LA-2A. Now, there are 3 generations, and I have some notes here I'm going to refer down to. So I'm looking down. I do apologize. I just want to give you some information. I took some notes. So there are 3 or actually 4 different LA-2A plugins that were made by Universal Audio. The first one being the Legacy, which is what you see on the screen here. Now the Legacy came out way back, maybe 10, 15 years ago, way back in the days of the UAD1, where the DSP technology and the modeling technology and the computer technology and speed of computers back in those days, and I want to say that probably happened, oh my goodness, probably somewhere in the early 2000s, late 90s, early 2000s of when that all kind of happened. The modeling technology, computer technology, so on and so forth, wasn't what it is today. And so this is called the Legacy version of the LA-2A. I think it was actually, the way I understand it from their website, the first model plugin that they did was the LA-2A. Only one version of it. And what makes this a little different is that this is not the most accurate representation of a real LA-2A, because again, back in the days where they had lesser technology, they were not able to model the input and output transformers, really just the photocell part of the compressor. So although it sounds really great, and for its time it was revolutionary, because nobody was making emulations of old pieces of analog gear like Universal Audio back in those days. Today everybody's making them, pardon me, but back in those days this was like kind of groundbreaking. And so, although this is still offered as when you buy any Universal Audio system, you will get this for free as part of the package, and it still sounds really good, but this is the Legacy version. So it isn't accurately as modeled because of the things that I just mentioned. So that's the first one. Around, I don't know, I'm not sure what year, but maybe 4 or 5 years later, they had released, here we go, Universal Audio re-released the LA-2A, but they released 3 different versions of it. Okay, so the first one that they released here, and this is called the LA-2A Collection. And when you buy the LA-2A Collection, you're going to get 3 plugins. You're going to get this one here, which is the original LA-2. Now, they did model the input and output transformers, and by the time that these were made, probably 10 years or after the legacy was made, the technology and the DSP and all that stuff was more up to date, and they were able to do a much more accurate job in modeling the particular plugins. So this is the LA-2. Now, the LA-2, which is the original, this was designed in the 1960s by Bill Putnam, and the LA-2 is actually the early 1960s, and it's the rarest of the groups in the hardware form. It has the slowest attack and release time. So the LA-2 is like one of the originals. It's very rare to find the hardware unit, and it has a very slow attack, a very slow release time. And again, as with all LA-2As, and we'll talk about the controls in a minute, you have no control over the ratio, the attack, and the release. It's all done under the hood. You just have peak reduction and gain, makeup gain, and that is really it. So this is the LA-2 from the early 1960s. Now, in the mid 1960s, they had in the hardware the gray. Let me close this one here. What they call the gray face is what they'll actually call it. This is from the mid 1960s. And this was designed by Jim Lawrence, and this has a medium attack and release. So it has a little bit faster attack and release than what we just originally saw, which has a slow attack and release, but it's not super fast. This is more of a medium style, okay? This is from like the 1960s hardware unit, okay? And then they also have the silver. Now the silver is actually from the 1960s, designed by Bill Putnam. This has the fastest attack and release. So this is a little bit more appropriate for maybe things that have some sharp transients, like maybe snare drums and those kinds of things, because it has a fast attack and a fast release, whereas something like the original LA-2, which is the slowest attack and release, or even the gray, because the attack is slow and the release is slow, it's not really appropriate, although it can work well, but it's not really common to use it on stuff with very heavy transients that you want to control. Okay, where something like this is a little bit more appropriate. We're starting to get more in towards the 1176 attack and release settings when you're talking about the LA-2A silver. Okay, so this is suitable on more different types of sources than maybe the other two. So as I said, when you pick up the LA-2A collection from Universal Audio today, you're getting these three plugins in one bundle. Okay, these three right here. And the legacy that I showed you a second ago, that always comes for free as part of any Universal Audio piece of hardware that you have. I don't tend to use the legacy anymore ever since these came out. And depending on the source material will depend on which one I would choose. They all sound a little different from each other because of the attack and the release settings. So some other things about the LA-2A, just so you know, it's an optical style compressor which uses a T4 optical attenuator. That's how it works. It works with light. So as you drive more signal into this thing, the light is what shines brighter, and as the light shines brighter, the attenuator will compress that more, and that's what drives the compression. Okay, you can do a Google search and you can read all the little techie details, but in the spirit of keeping this video somewhat short. Now, this was created by Jim Lawrence, who was an electrical engineer who developed optical sensors for the Titan missile program in the 1950s. So Jim Lawrence is the one that really developed this technology, because he developed those optical sensors for the military back in the 1950s. Jim's passion was also radio broadcasting, and he worked at KMGM in Los Angeles, and he became frustrated when he had to constantly ride the gain to maintain a constant on-air signal. So he was an engineer working in a radio station, and he became frustrated because depending on the source or the talent or the commercials or whatever, he had to constantly ride the gain to make sure that the audio signal from source to source during his program was consistent. And that frustration was where the idea of the leveling amplifier was born. The LA-2A, as you'll see down here, Teletronics, is a leveling amplifier. Okay, so he designed it in thinking that in the broadcast world, he wanted to have an automatic way to be able to control the level of different sources and to maintain a consistent level. So how does it work? As the input signal increases, the light panel gets brighter. As the light gets brighter, the photoresistor impedance increases, which reduces the gain. As the input level decreases, the light dims and the resistor's impedance decreases. Okay, so it really is just works with light in a photocell. It's pretty simple technology. Now, some of the sound characteristics that I would kind of, classify the LA-2A is some of the words that you'll hear people use when they talk about the sound of an LA-2A as far as recording and mixing is concerned. They'll say it's warm sounding, it's smooth, it has a buttery type of sound. It also has tubes inside of it, and the tubes add to that warmth. I should have said that it's a tube-based compressor as well. Okay, I tend to use the LA-2A on vocals. I tend to use it on bass guitar, sometimes strings or piano. Those where I would typically use them, as opposed to using them on something like a snare drum or kick drum, although they can sound okay. But because, again, of the lack of control over tack and release, I tend to use it on things that are not so percussive myself. But people have been known to use them on all different sorts of things. You have to try it out to see what works for you. It really depends on the program material. Okay, so now that we've kind of have a little history lesson and we kind of know what it's all about, let's take a listen to this. Let's take a listen to the LA-2A. Let's listen to it on a bass here for a second. This is a raw bass track, and let's start off with the Legacy, just because it's the first one in the chain. So the controls of an LA-2A, just so you know, if you've never looked at one before, is pretty simple. We have a peak reduction here. The more we turn up the peak reduction, the more compression we're going to get. We're going to see that. And then we have a makeup gain here. The makeup gain is going to allow us to kind of level match the plugin. So as we turn up the peak reduction, the volume is going to drop because we're going to get more compression, and we're going to compensate for that volume loss by turning up the gain knob. And then before and after, when you bypass the plugin, you want the before and after from a volume perspective to be relatively close as you could get it, to do a true A-B comparison so you can really hear what the compression is doing. Over here on the left-hand side, we have compress and limit. Now in compress mode, it's a 3-to-1 ratio. I believe that's right. Let me just make sure I double check. Yes, 3-to-1. And then in compression mode, it's infinity to 1. Or excuse me, in limit mode, it's infinity to 1. So I'm going to keep it in compress mode. This little screw here, this is what you'll see a couple of the models will it'll have a little label here that'll say emphasis, the emphasis screw. But basically what this is, if this one work on the Legacy? No, on the Legacy, actually, it doesn't work. That's right. This was not modeled. They just show it here as a graphic. On the newer versions, you'll see what this does. It's kind of a high pass filter where you can allow the low end to not trigger the compressor as much, and the more the upper frequencies, there's like a side chain thing here. But on the Legacy, it does not work. Like I said, the Legacy has the least amount of features, if you will. Okay, and then that's really it. We have a power button on the right side to turn it on and off, or we can bypass it up here, shut it on and off here. And then over here, we can take a look at the way the meter is displayed, and we'll keep it on gain reduction. So let's turn it on and let's get a little bit of compression on this bass. You can see as I turn it up, the volume gets lower, obviously. And then we can use the gain to compensate for that volume loss. It's before. After. Okay, so you can hear, hopefully over YouTube, that this is a very dynamic bass, a very transient, heavy bass. On the one especially, you hear boom, boom, boom. You can hear how it really pokes out. But with the compressor, with the LA-2A, and again, we're using the Legacy version, it kind of squeezes that transient a little bit. You can still hear it. It still sounds percussive, but it's a lot more even. And you'll also hear the note sustain a little bit more. This is without it. It's a lot more pokey. little more even sounding. Now, again, we're not getting the benefit of the sound of the input and the output transformers because on the legacy version, that modeling technology really wasn't there at that time, okay? So that's just how that particular one sounds, just so you know. I don't typically use the legacy version. The other ones are much better in my opinion. So we're gonna listen to the first one here. Here is the LA-2. Again, this one is going to have the slowest attack and the slowest release. And you'll notice that when we go to use this one, that you're going to have to turn up a lot more peak reduction to get this compression to start happening. So let's take a listen to that. Now, this also has the emphasis screw. See how we could turn that? It's hard to see, but that's also going to allow us, when we're fully clockwise all the way to the right, that's a flat EQ curve. That means all the frequencies are coming through and the compressor is reacting to all of them. And as you start to turn this counterclockwise, you will start to see that it won't have as much compression on a bass guitar, especially because a lot of that low-end information will start to not trigger the compressor. But let's start all the way flat just to start off at an even bass line. Now, as you can see, we have no compression really at all. Now, to get about that 5-7 dB of compression, look how much we got to turn this up. It's before. So you'll also notice that the very front end transient on those notes pokes through quite a bit more than it did even on the legacy. As I turned up the peak reduction on the legacy, you would hear that it would smooth out that a little bit. Where on this, it actually still pokes through a little more. Why is that? Because the attack is much slower. So it's letting that initial transient poke through a little bit more. And if that's what you're looking for to help that thing kind of cut through the mix, then that would be appropriate. You hear it soften a little, but not a lot. Okay, so that's let's turn that one off. That is the LA-2. Okay, let's just kind of bring this down here because we'll listen to all three in a minute. Here is the gray. Okay, this is going to have the medium attack and release as opposed to the one we just listened to. So again, over here we have the little tape saying emphasis, where if we turn this all the way, it'll be flat. And let's listen to what this one does. Let's turn off this one. Let's listen to, actually, let's do it with the power switch so I can see the LED turn off. Okay, here we go. Now just look at, because this is a more medium style attack, look at where the peak reduction is on this versus on this one down here. Right? You don't have to turn up nearly as much peak production to get it to compress. Why? Because it's a faster style attack. It's on the medium side. You can see just the way the needle responds is a little bit more snappy. Bit more thickness on the bottom of this one as well. Now just to show you what the emphasis does. As I turn this completely counterclockwise all the way to the other side, it's hard to see it to the left. No compression. All the low ends coming through. That's why you hear those transients. As I bring it back, much more compression. So depending on the source material that you're using, we're using a bass guitar here, so it's all low end. So I want the emphasis. I want it to be flat. I want the low end to trigger the compressor because I'm using it on a bass instrument. But let's say it was an acoustic guitar, for example. that might be different, or a vocal or something. Okay, so just understand that's what it does. That's before. You can hear it squeeze and get a little thicker. Very smooth. Okay, so that's the gray. So now if we go to the silver, here is the silver, which is going to have the faster of the three, attack and release. Same kind of setup. We'll turn the emphasis all the way flat here. We'll keep it on compress, and let's see what this one does. Let's turn it on. Once again, quite a bit more compression there, a little bit faster attack. It's going to squeeze that transient a little sooner. Okay, now let's listen to all three back to back. Let's just toggle them back and forth. So what I'll do is I'll just turn off one power button, turn the next power button on. So we'll start with the top and we'll work our way down from the silver to the gray to the original, and just watch, keep your eye on the meter and the power button. Okay, so there are three. They're very similar sounding, and of course they're going to sound very similar. Really, the difference is how quickly it clamps down on that transient with the attack time and how long it holds on to the note, right, because of the release time. Tonally, these are modeled after three very specific different physical hardware units, so they're going to sound a little bit different, but they sound very similar, right, in that they're smooth. They tend to glue things together and give a nice little round bottom, and depending on how aggressive you go with it, we went a little more aggressive than I probably would in a mix here. I just want you to hear what the compressor does. It just really tames that bass really, really well in this case. Okay, now let's also listen to this on, let's say, a lead vocal. Here, just an isolated lead vocal track. So I'm going to solo up our lead vocal here, hopefully, if I got it in the right spot.
I know the season's ripe for change. It's changing all around.
So
I know the reasons you've arranged.
So we'll start with the legacy. Okay, I'm not going to walk through the plugin again. You know how it works.
I know the season's ripe for change. It's changing all around. I know the reasons you've arranged. They're tearing me down. Where is the peacefulness of mine? Where will my heart come back to life? I'm alright as I pick up the pieces that are left of me. I'm alright being away from you, and I'll be fine cleaning out the corner, putting back in order. But no, I will always have this too, a little piece of you.
So as you can hear on that, again, it doesn't add a lot of color, but it squeezes that transient kind of nice, and you can see the way the needle reacts, the attack and release on this legacy version. Sounds pretty good. When you're listening to a lead vocal, listen to the very first words, the phrases, the consonants, the ones that poke out. That's where you'll hear what these compressors will kind of do. Sounds pretty smooth, right? So let's try, was that the legacy? Oh, that was the legacy, yes. Oh, what did I do here? Let me make sure I get the LA-2 over here, get the right ones here, right? LA-2 And then we're going to take this one as well, and we're going to take this one as well. Okay, so here we go on this lead vocal. So here is, again, the LA-2. It's going to have the slowest attack and release. I think this is more like the Legacy one than the other two is, personally.
I know the season's ripe for change. It's changing all around. I know the reasons you've arranged. They're tearing me down. Where is the peacefulness of mine? Where will my heart come back to life? I'm alright as I pick up the pieces that are left of me. I'm alright being away from you.
So you can hear that again, because it has a slow attack time, it doesn't grab that transient on a lead vocal as quickly as I probably would like on this particular lead vocal, okay? Because it's got a very slow and attack and release. Okay, let's try the next one here, the gray face, right? Push this down here and we'll listen to all three of them again. So here's the gray. Let's turn this one on.
I know the season's ripe for change. It's changing all around. I know the reasons you've arranged. They're tearing me down. Where is the peacefulness of mine? Where will my heart come back to life? I'm alright as I pick up the pieces that are left of me. I'm alright being away from you. And I'll be fine, cleaning out the corner, putting back in order. But know I will always have this too, a little piece of you.
So again, cuts down on that transient a little bit more than the one we just listened to, obviously. So they get a little bit faster attack and release. But it still allows that transient to kind of poke through a little bit here. We have the emphasis turned all the way on flat on this one. Okay, let's listen to the silver, which is, again, going to have the fastest attack and release, which means it should be squishing down that transient to even a little bit better than the other two, or a little bit faster.
I know the season's ripe for change. It's changing all around. I know the reasons you've arranged. They're tearing me down. Where is the peacefulness of mine? Where will my heart come back to life? I'm alright as I pick up the pieces that are left of me. I'm alright being away from you. And I'll be fine, cleaning out the corner, putting back in order. But know I will always have this too, a little piece of you.
So this absolutely squeezes that front end transient a little bit more. It still allows it to come through. It doesn't sound like you squished it to death, like you've over squished it. And we're hitting 10 dB here, right? It's a pretty dynamic vocal, but it squeezes it enough to make it sound a little bit more natural. It doesn't kind of poke out at you and hit you in the face, if you know what I mean. And if you don't know what I mean, let's listen to this quickly in the context of a mix, meaning this mix is not done at all. Let me just, how do I close this? Shift W? Yeah, Shift W will close that in Luna. Let's bypass everything here, and let's just do we'll even remove this one from the bass here. And just for the vocals here, let's listen.
I know the season's ripe for change.
Okay, so that's good enough. So let's start with this. We'll start with the first one here. Okay, we'll turn this first one on. We'll keep the other two off. And now I want you to listen for the very first words, the very first phrase, the very first couple of words of each phrase is where he tends to get really, you'll hear it. So here, let's listen to this. We're going to listen to the LA-2, the one on the bottom here.
I know the season's ripe for change. It's changing all around. I know the reasons you've arranged. They're tearing me down. Where is the peacefulness of mine? Where will my heart come back to life? I'm alright as I pick up the pieces that are left of me. I'm alright
Okay, so that's the LA2. So let's do the same thing. Let's go to the gray face. Again, we're hitting it pretty hard, about 10 dB of compression.
I know the season's right for change. It's changing all around. I know the reasons you've arranged. They're tearing me down. Where is the peacefulness of mine? Where will my heart come back to life? I'll be fine, cleaning up the corner, putting back in order. You know I will always have this too, a little piece of you.
Okay, now let's try the LA-2A, the silver face, which again has the faster attack on it.
I know the season's right for change. It's changing all around. I know the reasons you've arranged. They're tearing down. Where is the peacefulness of mine? Where will my heart come back to life? I'm alright as I pick up the pieces that are left of me. I'm alright, being away from you, and I'll be fine, cleaning up the corner, putting back in order. You know I will always have this too. Piece of you.
Okay, so it sounds like it sits in the pocket a little more. Nothing really jumps out and hits you in the face. Why? Because we have a faster attack and it's tucking it in a little more. I'm going to play that phrase one last time, then we're going to end this video. I'm going to give you guys your next free gift. I'm going to turn these on and off. I'm just going to cycle them through. And I'm doing this so you can hear it in the context of a mix of other instruments around the vocal. Okay, so we're going to start off at the bottom. We're going to work our way up. I'll turn it on, turn it off, turn it on, turn it off, turn it on, turn it off. And you can hear it. You could just hear the different way it reacts to the source material. Here we go. So we'll start with the first one.
I know the season's right for change. It's changing all around. I know the reasons you've arranged. They're tearing me down. Where is the peacefulness of mine? Where will my heart come back to life? As I pick up the pieces that are left of me, I'm alright, being away from you, and I'll be fine, cleaning up the corner, putting back in order. You know I will always have this too, a little piece of you.
Okay, so there we go. So there are the subtle differences between these three really, really great compressors. The LA-2A is definitely a compressor you should have in your plugin collection, without a doubt. Now, if you don't have universal audio, and you don't have a universal audio setup, and these plugins really mean nothing to you, but you stuck around to watch the video because you were interested, but you want to know about other LA-2A style compressors that are more native based, well, you could check out the Wave CLA-2A. Overloud makes the Gem LA Comp, Slate Digital makes the FGA, and then PreSonus also makes the Tube Comp if you're a Studio One user, and that comes for free with your DAW, and they're all going to sound a little bit different. I tend to think that the universal audio ones sound the most authentic. I like the fact that you get 3 different versions of it in one plugin collection, but they all sound great. And I also did, if you check the link in the description box below, probably 5 or 6 months ago, we did a live stream where we actually shot out LA-2As from all the different manufacturers. I think I own 7 or 8 of them, and we did all of that together. You could check out that video. Link will be in the description box below. But there's a little history lesson on the LA-2A. Those are the 3, 4, if you include the legacy version, that Universal Audio offers, and I think they're wonderful, wonderful plugins. And the thing about Universal Audio that's different from a lot of other companies that make emulations of the old analog gear is they try to stay very true to the actual hardware, and there's no additional, usually no additional bells and whistles and features, where on some of the other plugin companies, they add additional features to them, which is great to make them a little bit more modern style, but these original LA-2As are just like the hardware. And they're really, really cool. They sound really great. And again, once you have all 3 of them, you really have all the LA-2A style compressors that you need. So I want to thank you so much for checking out this LA-2A Universal Audio Classic Series, episode number 2. Now, I said at the beginning of the video, I want to give you guys another free gift. So you went out to Home Recording Made Easy, hopefully, or you're going to do that right after this video, and you're going to get your free $50 mixing course. I want you to check out that course if you dig my style of teaching and you want to get some additional training, whether it be on EQ, compression, mixing, mastering, recording, so on and so forth. You could check out one of the other courses on my website, and I want to give you a 25% discount coupon code that you can use at checkout that'll take 25% off of any one of the training courses, and that coupon code is YouTube25. YouTube25. Put it at checkout. Instantly takes 25% off any of the training courses on my website. And again, it's my gift to you just for checking out Home Recording Made Easy. And I hope you enjoy the courses. Let me know below if you use Universal Audio in the comments. Let me know what you think of the LA-2A. Do you not use Universal Audio? And if so, why not? Why don't you like it? Do you not understand it? A lot of people don't understand the hardware and the whole ecosystem, and that's why I want you to check out the playlist in the description box so you can learn all about the Universal Audio ecosystem, because I think they're great. And again, all the links in the description box will be below for you to check out Universal Audio gear at Sweetwater. Again, those are my affiliate links. Thank you so much in advance. But I'd love to hear from you below. Let me know what you think of this, and continue on with these Universal Audio series reviews, because I think it's a lot of fun, and I think you'll really enjoy them. And until the next video, I've been Dave with HomeRecordingMadeEasy.com. Thank you so much for watching this video, and I'll see you guys soon. Take care, everybody.